him to select perhaps the speaker that he's using. You know, if he clicks on the microphone, microphone icon at the bottom.
He says unmuted again.
Okay, so again, we ask our colleagues at ESQA technical team to please allow Professor Sarwat to unmute. Ria, could you confirm, please, that you've allowed him to unmute?
Yes, we did.
Okay, perfect. Professor Sarwat, can you hear us?
Yes, now it is okay.
Okay, excellent.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam. Good to see you, Professor Sarwat.
Thanks so much. Thanks so much.
And Dr. Yusuf Dinj will be sharing the presentation when you start your intervention, inshallah. So he will do that from his side.
During the presentation, I will be sharing, Hojam. No need for you to share the presentation slides.
Dr. Yusuf, Doctor, we can start. Yeah, you can share 1 and 2. Okay.
Sure. Yes.
Okay. I will follow your presentation, your slides.
Okay. Hojam.
So just to get it clear, who will be speaking first?
Servet Hojam.
Okay, so Professor Sarwat, you will speak first.
I will start, inshallah. After that,
okay.
I let the microphone, Dr. Yusuf.
And as per the program, we have our IOM colleague, Hassan, who will be starting out first, inshallah.
Inshallah.
Okay, thank you. So I think we'll give, probably 5 or 6 more minutes. So we'll start shortly after 3 o'clock, inshallah.
Okay, inshallah.
إذا بدكم ترجعوا تعملوا تيستينج حيسمعونا عارف على
عملنا تيستينج. لو بتحبوا نعمل تيستينج للانتربريتيشن.
عم نعمله، عم نعيده مرة تانية. بدك ماشي؟ خلص ماشي الحال. ماشي
ممتاز شكرا.
ماشي حالهم بحال حدا خرب هلا إلي.
Thank you so much.
I see that Dr. Ahmed Al-Marekhi has joined us. حياكم الله دكتور. If it's appropriate for you now to open your microphone and video camera, please go ahead, or else we could do it at the end, inshallah. But if possible, it would be great to test it. Dr. Al-Marekhi, welcome.
Hi, Yusuf. He's never had any technical issues, so he's gonna stay off camera and then come on at the very end. He'll open it up.
Perfect.
So he'll be.
Thank you, Margaret, for that.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. يا مرحبا، حياك الله أخوي يوسف. يا مرحبا، كيف صحتكم؟ طيبون إن شاء الله. أنا بكون موجود لكن عندي بعض الإشكاليات الفنية، لكن بكون لأن الكاميرا بحاول إذا كانت تشتغل في النهاية، لأن لازم الهوست يعطيني يعني البرميشن على أساس أنا أدخل. فأنا إن شاء الله بكون معاكم، لكن لأن أنا عندي كلوسنج حسب علمي، أليس كذلك؟
صحيح بحول الله.
إن شاء الله
إن شاء الله دكتور.
الله يبارك فيك، يسلمك، الله يجزيك، لكن موجود معاكم.
طيب الله يجزاكم.
الصوت واضح صح؟
واضح جدا، واضح.
طيب السلام عليكم.
شكرا. طيب, for colleagues who are just joining, I think we're going to allow a few minutes, inshallah, before we start. So let's say we start at 3:02 or 3:03 maximum, inshallah. Thank you. At this time, I would like to invite our speakers to please open their cameras, and you can remain on mute until your intervention, if you like. But please, just to make sure that we have everyone around the table, inshallah. Thank you both. Professor Sarwat, if you're with us, inshallah, it would be great to open your camera at this point. Okay, so I assume Professor Sarwat will be joining us, inshallah, by video shortly. Yes. Thank you, Professor. So I think, with your permission and the permission of all colleagues, I will ask that everyone please mute their microphones until the time of their intervention. And, until such time, I think we should be just about ready to start. So again, everyone, please mute their microphones until the time of the intervention, inshallah. Okay, so with your permission all, I think we shall go ahead and get started. Can I just confirm one last time with a thumbs up from the speakers that you can hear me? Perfect. Okay, so Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salamu ala Rasulillah. It is my pleasure to welcome you today to this event, this seminar to be precise, in which we will be discussing the International Organization for Migration's Muslim Alms Administration System. My name is Yusuf Al-Sawadi, and I am an Awqaf investment specialist at the Islamic Development Bank. I am also the moderator for today's seminar. Before moving on, however, please allow me to cover a few housekeeping items. I would like to draw your attention to the interpretation button at the bottom of your screen. As you may follow the seminar in either Arabic or English, it's the globe-shaped button at the bottom of the Zoom window. Furthermore, kindly note that the first half of the seminar will include presentations. So we'll have 3 presentations from our 3 esteemed speakers. We will then have a Q&A session, which will be dedicated to listening and hearing from you, our audience, and receiving your questions, whether through the chat box or through your open mics. And at that time, participants will be actually encouraged to open their cameras and microphones to ask questions. But until that time, you will not be able to do so. So with that being said, this seminar is the 11th in a series under the name of the International Dialogue on the Role of Islamic Social Financing in Achieving the Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs. The dialogue, launched in May of this year, is a joint initiative co-organized by the United Nations under the leadership of Ms. Amina Mohammed, UN Deputy Secretary General, and the Islamic Development Bank. Logistical arrangements are being kindly handled by the United Nations Economic and Social Commission for Western Asia, otherwise known as UNESWA. The aim of this dialogue is to foster a global discussion on best practices regarding Islamic social financing in its various forms, such as Zakat, Sadaqah, and Waqf, and to explore how these tools can be mainstreamed in international organizations, such as the UN environment and UN agencies. The intention is to optimize the impact of Islamic social financing, while also helping to fill the global SDGs financing gap through strategic alignment with the SDGs, especially given the significant overlap between the SDGs and the objectives of Islamic law, otherwise known as Maqasid al-Sharia. The content and discussions of this dialogue will ultimately feed into a report and actionable roadmap, which we hope will benefit many international organizations and agencies, whether they be in the UN system or beyond. So one of these international organizations in question, which is interested in exploring the potential of Islamic social financing, and is the focus of today's seminar, is the International Organization for Migration, or the IOM. With its extensive global footprint of operations carried out in more than 400 offices worldwide, the IOM has become an important humanitarian and development actor that has been increasingly called upon by governments to respond to crises and development challenges while upholding the dignity of its beneficiaries. These beneficiaries include migrants, internally displaced persons, refugees, victims of trafficking, and other vulnerable communities, including women, children, and persons with disabilities. Indeed, in today's world, I think we can all agree that the significance of migrants and migration cannot be overemphasized. Furthermore, it is perhaps very appropriate for this to be the next to last session of the International Dialogue on the Role of Islamic Social Financing in Achieving the SDGs, which will culminate in its 12th and final seminar within a couple of weeks. In today's seminar, we are examining an initiative that is in the design phase, or nearing, I think, the launch phase, and is yet to be really officially launched. It is rather encouraging indeed to see new initiatives and programs continuing to be developed as we move forward. And we sincerely hope that the dialogue may contribute, even in a small way, in a positive way to such new initiatives. I will leave the description of IOM's Muslim Alms administration system to our distinguished speakers. We are indeed privileged today to have with us Mr. Hassan Abdulmund, IOM's Special Envoy for the Gulf States, Professor Dr. Sarwat Bayandir, Chairperson of the Islamic Economic Research Waqf, known as Iqtisad Waqfi, Associate Professor Dr. Yusuf Dinj of Istanbul Sabahattin University, as well as Dr. Ahmed al-Marekhi, Special Advisor to the UN Secretary General and a key person really behind this entire dialogue on Islamic social financing from the beginning. So now, with this background in mind, and my apologies for perhaps taking more than my share of the time, but I hope this lays the context. It gives me great pleasure to introduce our first speaker, Mr. Hassan Abdulmund. As mentioned previously, Hassan is IOM's Special Envoy for the Gulf States. Prior to joining the IOM, He had joined the Egyptian Foreign Service in June 1986. He served in the Egyptian Embassy in Abu Dhabi, UAE from 1990 to 1994, and the Egyptian Permanent Mission to the UN in Geneva from 1996 to 2000. He has been seconded to the IOM since March 2001, where he has held a number of senior positions. To be honest, I could run through those positions, but I think Mr. Hassan's CV is longer than something that we could really cover effectively today. So with that, and with no further ado, Hassan, the floor is yours. So we're looking forward to sharing this presentation.
Thank you very much, Doctor. A wise man once said, it's not the title that honors the person, but the person that honors the title. And I believe he was right. Thank you very much for this introduction. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues. It's a real pleasure. It's a real pleasure to join this gathering to share IOM views and efforts on an important subject, such as the Islamic Fund. In previous sessions, many of our colleagues have enlightened us on what their organizations have achieved so far, and their contribution represent a real insight to our collective efforts in the UN system to achieve the noble objectives of this Islamic financing dialogue. At the outset, I would like to express our thanks to His Excellency Ambassador Ahmed al-Marekhi, Special Advisor to the UN Secretary General, and his capable team for their engagement and support. I also would like to convey the best wishes of IOM Director General Antonio Vitorino for a successful and fruitful discussion. Finally, let me thank also ESCO and IDB for their support and efforts. I have a presentation that I will like to share with you. It will be brief, and then our colleagues from the Islamic Economic Research Foundation Iqtisad Waqf will give you the real substance of what IOM has achieved so far, thanks to their support. So, our mission as IOM is to make sure that we continue with the principle that humane and orderly migration benefits migrants and society, which is actually a very difficult principle to stay with during those times. A brief history, as you see on the screen. I'm not going to go through this in details, but we were established in 1951 as a response, like UNHCR, to the end of the Second World War. We went through different phases of growth, which also reflected the nature and the number of our membership. And we finally became an international organization for migration, and we joined the UN family as a related organization in 2016. And we're very happy that in 2018, the member states adopted the Global Compact for Migration, GCM, and IOM was requested by the Secretary General to coordinate the newly established UN Migration Network. These are some figures about IOM, number of staff, almost 16,000, from 168 nationalities, from many countries really. We have 174 member states, 590 offices, and a budget of roughly $2 billion. We have two budgets. One is the administrative budget, which comes from the annual contribution of our member states. And then the large budget is the operational budget, which is more than $2 billion. IOM, as the leading international organization for migration, or the UN Migration Organization, works with partners and in the international community to achieve these four goals, which are to assist in meeting the growing operational challenges of migration management, advance understanding of migration issues, encourage social and economic development through migration, and this is exactly what we're doing today, and then uphold the human dignity and well-being of migrants, and this is exactly what we want to do with the establishment of the Islamic Fund. These are some of our activities. 8 broad areas, from migration policy and governance to migration law and research, going through refugee resettlement in support of other UN agencies, migration health, border management, labor migration and development, migration assistance, and of course, responding to emergencies. These are some key figures. And I think that the most important figure is this one. We talk about mobility, really. It's not migration, it's people on the move. And these are some of the activities that shows what IOM intervention in camp coordination, in emergencies, camp coordination, camp management, water sanitation, shelter and non-food items, emergency health, and so on. IOM has prioritized the full realization of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals of 2030 Agenda. IOM's mandate directly aligns with SDGs 10.7 objective, which is to facilitate orderly, safe, and responsible migration and mobility of people, including through the implementation of planned and well-managed migration policies. Also, migration governance directly contributes to the achievement of all SDGs. Finally, the adoption of the Global Compact for safe, orderly, and regular migration, and the establishment of the UN Network on Migration highlights the importance of our work. My colleague, the IOM Regional Director for the MENA region, Carmela Godot, with her team have worked during the last few years to establish an IOM MENA strategy, 2020 to 2024. The mission statement is migrants, displaced population, returnees, and host communities in the Middle East and North Africa are able to exercise their rights in an inclusive and equitable environment that is guided by evidence-based policy and programming under the 3 pillars and their objectives. The 3 pillars correspond to IOM strategic vision. The first one is resilience, the second one is mobility, and the third one is governance. For resilience, we want to ensure that migrants, displaced populations, host communities, and governments in the MENA region have increased capacities to prepare for, mitigate, and respond when faced with a wide range of risks across all stages of migration. Second one, mobility, is to enhance existing and develop new, efficient, rights-based, and safe mobility pathways. Finally, governance, drive evidence-based inter-regional, regional, national, and local processes to enhance governance capacities to integrate mobility into improved policies, legal frameworks, institutions, practices, and international cooperation mechanisms through improved data. And we're doing this already with many regional institutions like the League of Arab States and ESCO and so on. And then we decided to establish a strategy for the Gulf countries, 2021-2024, based on IOM strategic vision and IOM, or complementing IOM MENA region strategy. The strategy for the Gulf countries lays the foundation for IOM's strengthened cooperation with the Gulf countries on issues related to migration. And the reason I'm mentioning this specific strategy is because most of our target countries, besides of course Malaysia and others, but in the Islamic funding will be from the Gulf countries. 9 of the strategic goals are in line with IOM strategic pillars of resilience, mobility, and governance. And we have aligned with Gulf countries' national agendas and priorities. We didn't come with a set agenda for the Gulf countries. Our dialogue with the Gulf countries is the basis for what we will be implementing in the region or in the sub-region. And it's based on their own priorities and where they see IOM support is needed. We recognize Gulf countries' commitment to the SDGs and adoption of the Global Compact for safe, orderly, and regular migration. And I have to say that many of the Gulf countries have really moved a lot, made a lot of progress on the achievement of the SDGs. And finally, builds on IOM expanding portfolio in the Gulf countries and focuses on creating win-win solutions for all migration stakeholders. The Director General just visited Doha last month, and we have plans if travel is allowed again for next year to continue our visits to many of the countries in the region. As for this, IOM's Islamic Philanthropy Fund, we have been working on this idea for quite some time now, actually since 2020. We have established an internal task force to assess the possibility, and then we had the privilege of working with our colleagues in Iqtisad Waqf to study the possibility of IOM assuming the role of collecting and disbursing Muslim alms. And we're grateful that on the 11th of December last year, the Iqtisad Advisory Committee issued a fatwa that IOM can establish an Islamic Philanthropy Fund to collect and disburse zakat and sadaqah and other Muslim alms to entitled beneficiaries. Four well-known scholars issued this fatwa. I will not go into details because my colleagues serve it. Definitely will share that with you. But this is the fatwa, and if you allow me, because I really also want to speak in Arabic, so I'll just read the verse of Quran. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. إنما الصدقات للفقراء والمساكين والعاملين عليها والمؤلفة قلوبهم وفي الرقاب والغارمين وفي سبيل الله وابن السبيل فريضة من الله والله عليم حكيم. And again, our colleagues in Iqtisad will explain to you, but I think it doesn't really need explanation, and we're very comfortable with this fatwa. I'm grateful for it. So finally, IOM Islamic Philanthropy Fund is a work in progress, and we are planning to take the following steps. First, develop and institutionalize standards of practice in full alignment with the Sharia requirements, and this is very important. That's the basis of our work. And then establish a Sharia advisory board to monitor and validate IOM Islamic Philanthropy Fund's compliance with Islamic principles, in addition to setting up mechanisms for other general conditions laid out by the fatwa. And finally, establish an IOM Islamic Fund and appoint its management team. This is the end of my presentation, PowerPoint presentation, but let me conclude with this. Huge resources and funding from different and diverse sources are needed right now. And IOM is well positioned to collect Muslim alms from individuals directly and distribute them to the needy ones. IOM is also capable of working as an intermediary between institutions, foundations, and charitable organizations and eligible recipients. Today's discussion is an opportunity for all of us to contribute in the finalization of IOM Islamic Philanthropy Fund and making it a reality that can serve in achieving our common objectives of ensuring that no one is left behind. This fund will be an important tool for future IOM programs and projects that support both the emergency response and the poverty alleviation, education, healthcare, and other SDG goals. IOM is well placed with your support and cooperation to respond to the urgent needs of the vulnerable people and to the objectives of the SDGs. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Hassan, for this excellent presentation and really inspiring work which is being done. I think, whether in the domain of IOM itself and its impact on migrants, which you touched upon and really covered and gave us an idea and a feel of the size of the organization and numbers. You also gave us an idea of the strategy in the MENA region and the Gulf, which was very helpful for us to understand your role and how this is situated in the larger picture. And then you gave us an idea about Islamic philanthropy and what IOM is planning on doing and what it's done so far in this area. And again, it's exciting to see that this is upcoming. It's great to hear that in some way this dialogue might have helped or influenced. I know our colleague Professor Yusuf Dinj has been with us, I think, on almost every seminar. So thank you for that. And I think it was really interesting the way you tied it indirectly to the verse of the Quran al-Kareem. I think it makes it very clear that migration is really central to Islamic alms. And indeed, you gave us a touch or a flavor of the way forward, but I think we might get a bit more as well, and definitely some more detail from the following presentation. So thank you for that. Now, ladies and gentlemen, our next two speakers are co-coordinators of the IOM Muslim Alms Report, which is basically this knowledge basis for the IOM Muslim Alms Administration system. I will introduce both of them consecutively as they will be jointly presenting the following presentations. So please bear with me, and I'm definitely not doing justice to the speakers. I'm going to cut some corners on the CVs, but apologies in advance for that. So first of all, Professor Dr. Serwet Bayendir is the chairperson of the Islamic Economic Research Waqf, known as Iqtisad Waqfi. He started working in the Faculty of Theology of Istanbul University as a research assistant in December 2001, and he was appointed as a full professor in July 2014. He is also teaching Islamic finance PhD courses at Istanbul Sabahattin Zaim University. He now works as a lecturer at the Department of Islamic Economics and Finance in Istanbul University. Professor Bayendir's scientific work is mainly on Islamic finance, a discipline in which he has published a number of books and received multiple awards. He has also served as a Sharia board member at a number of participation banks. Once Professor Bayendir is done with his intervention, Professor Dr. Bayendir will hand over to Associate Professor Yusuf Dinj of Istanbul Sabahattin Zaim University. Associate Professor Dinj started his career in Islamic finance at Al Baraka Turk Participation Bank in 2007. He later worked for Trakya University Banking School as a faculty member from 2016 to 2017. And he has been working for Istanbul Sabahattin Zaim University in the Islamic Economics and Finance Department since 2017. He is the director of IZU's Management, Entrepreneurship, and Leadership Research Center. He has numerous publications and has advised and coordinated multiple projects for national, international, and intergovernmental organizations. So with that, Professor Bayendir, with no further ado, please go ahead. The floor is yours.
Thanks. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome again to the wonderful session, International Dialogue on the Role of Islamic Financing in Achieving the Sustainable Development Goals, which is co-organized by Islamic Development Bank and the United Nations. As part of this session, I also would like to welcome you to our presentation on IOM Muslim Alms Report. It is an honor to have the opportunity to address such a distinguished audience. This report has been commissioned, as mentioned by Hassan, by the International Organization for Migration, IOM, to Iqtisad Waqf. Let me briefly introduce Iqtisad Waqf. Iqtisad Waqf was founded in 1995, and since 2019, it has started to focus on contemporary Islamic economic issues, especially from the perspective of Islamic economics. It aims to work on determining the principles of Islamic related to economics and present them on the agenda of the humanity. In this context, it was accredited for consulting from the Turkish financial authorities. Currently, many academic projects are being studied within the Iqtisad. The report was prepared by an academic team that was coordinated by me, Servet Bayendir, and my co-coordinator, Dr. Yusuf Dinç. Our academic team includes Dr. Omar Usani from Nigeria, Dr. Ruslan Nagayev from Kazakhstan, Dr. Ziad Muhammad from South Africa, Dr. Muhammad Basil Ghassanov from Dagestan, and also our brother Rashid Jihangir from Bangladesh. On behalf of Iqtisad, we are grateful to the leading Muslim religious scholars who provided their opinions on issues raised relating to Muslim alms, and would extend its gratefulness to late Sheikh Ustad Dr. Abdul Sattar Abu Ghudda, rahimahullah, Dr. Muhammad Akram Laudin from Malaysia, Dr. Abdul Razak Alaro from South Africa, and also Dr. Abdul Aziz Bayindir from Turkey. Besides, we are also grateful to the following UN organizations who shared their experiences and practices, namely UNHCR, UNRWA, UNDP, and also UNICEF, and National Zakat Foundation worldwide. Also in Turkish-based organizations, İHH, and also Turkish Red Crescent, TRC. And now it's my pleasure to yield the floor to my colleague, co-coordinator, Dr. Yusuf Dinç, who will continue to discussion on IOM Muslim Alms report. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Servet Hocam, and thanks, dear brother Yusuf, for introducing. Excellencies, colleagues, respected brothers and sisters, thanks for joining us. I will present the details of the report with this agenda, but firstly, I want to mention that this research is commissioned to us by IOM to provide a roadmap for how the institution can collect, manage, and distribute Zakat fund for the sake of their well-suited, I guess well-suited is the correct word, target groups. So thanks IOM for partnering with us on this, and thanks to them for not to sacrifice the scientific importance of this study. So this is, I guess, the latest and one of the most comprehensive study on Zakat administration, and it basically reviews the concept of alms giving from the Islamic perspective, of course. It will outline the Sharia framework based on primary and secondary sources of Islamic jurisprudence, outline the Sharia framework based on, as I mentioned, the primary and secondary sources, conducts analysis, interviews, as Servet Hoca mentioned, the esteemed scholars, also the institutions, Zakat administrating institutions from all over the world, especially the other UN agencies. And at the end, it compares the fatwa of contemporary Sharia scholars, review the current practices of those institutions, and concludes with a fatwa that Brother Hassan gave the brief summary. I will also explain the details, inshallah. So the objective of the study can be seen to analyze the theoretical, legal, and Sharia framework governing Muslim alms, including the interpretations by various Islamic schools of thought, to analyze the interviews with selected scholars from 4 major schools of Islamic thought and representative of selected charity organizations. That includes interview, but also survey. To obtain fatwa from Islamic scholars and relevant issues governing zakat and sadaqah, and to review the existing strategies and methods of collection, distribution, and managing of alms, and outline the best practices. And of course, as an additional study, we conducted the guideline for IOM how to operate the Islamic Philanthropy Fund. So what we started our analysis with the expectations. So there is a potential up to 500 billion USD for Zakat. That is estimated by the World Bank, and 10 billion only is managed by the Zakat Fund, Global Zakat Funds. Also, there is a huge potential at the Zakat Waqf part, and it may reach up to 1 trillion according to the estimations. So there is a potential for Zakat administration, and we think that we still need sufficient number of efficient Zakat administrators for many vulnerable communities. So those are the methodologies detailed. We have the primary sources analysis with the Sharia scholars. Also, we have secondary sources analysis with the systematic review of literature, of course, Quran, Hadith, Sunnah, and Ijma. And we have the case studies in the context of the study. So we also developed a theoretical and legal framework at the very beginning. We briefly defined what Zakat is, or Muslim alms is. So it starts with the Zakat obligate person analysis, and it reached to Nisab. We gave those definitions, also the details of Nisab. Also, we defined the recipients from Quran, as Brother Hassan also read the ayah. So we found that these categories, recipient categories, are well suited with the IOM's target groups. So we also analyzed the history and contribution of Waqf. Also, the examples have been analyzed in the context of the study. Also, we analyzed the governmental administration of the Muslim alms, especially from Indonesia, Kuwait, Malaysia, Pakistan, and Saudi. Those are the introductory part of our study. So what we focused on the analysis part. So we started with the scholars' view to understand the collection and distribution and managing of Muslim alms administration. So those are the details, but I want to briefly summarize the overall. According to the majority of the interviewed scholars, IOM is able to establish an Islamic philanthropy fund and operate as Amilin without being hindered by the Sharia law. After understanding that IOM is eligible, we try to understand the best practices. So we have analyzed all UN agencies, also National Zakat Fund from UK, Turkish Red Crescent, also İHA, humanitarian relief from Turkey. And we found that they have different strategies in each section of our focus parts of the administration process, for collecting, also managing and distributing. So those details are detailedly discussed in the study, but I want to give some brief information on them. So many of the institutions are well keen on Islamic philanthropy fund, especially the UN agencies. And what is attractive with IOM is the team's concentration on the Sharia compliance of the Zakat funds. Thanks to them for their approach. So I want to skip those part and focus more on the IOM, how it is well placed and mandated to receive and allocate Muslim alms. It is briefly indispensable humanitarian and development actor in the system. Many doesn't know IOM in details, but after studying through the project, we have found that IOM is playing a critical role in many parts of the world, which is really hard to reach locations, So we can say that their target groups, also the Zakat recipients categories, are very well suited, and their accountability, IOM's accountability and transparency is key for a Zakat, any Zakat institution which is satisfied by IOM. So after these analyses, we recommended to establish an Islamic Philanthropy Fund for IOM and establish a permanent task force for this and Sharia board. Also develop a Muslim alms mobilization strategy and other partnership opportunities with the Islamic philanthropy funds of UN agencies and other charitable organizations. And we conducted our study with the summary that IOM is well suited for establishing a Zakat fund. Then we processed through Iktisad Sharia board. Iktisad has an accredited Sharia board by Turkish authorities, and the board the board's resolution on the fatwa is given by brother Hassan, but I want to give some more details, inshallah. So first, IOM can collect zakat as aminin. Zakat collected from Muslims should be dispersed immediately to the designated recipients. Sadaqah and other Muslim alms collected should be dispersed to the respective categories of whom may be identified by the donors. Also, Muslim alms should be kept in segregated accounts, especially if it is available Islamic banking account. Administrative and overhead costs relating to the collection and management of zakat can be classified under expenses of the collectors of zakat funds. It is suggested that expenses should attempt to be as low as possible and should never exceed 12.5% of the zakat funds collected. The ruling on the expenses for other types of Muslim alms are flexible depending on the conditions set by the donors. However, again, it is suggested to keep these expenses as low as possible. The establishment of a Sharia board to monitor and validate compliance with Islamic principles throughout the collection, administration, and distribution process. Those are the details of the Iktisad Waqf Fatwa. So it will be available on IOM's website, inshallah, and it will be a huge contribution to the literature. For further, I would be happy to answer any questions, and I would be happy to get the comments of the participants, inshallah. Thanks, brother. Yusuf, I cannot hear.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Associate Professor Yusuf Dinj, Professor Dr. Sarwat Bayander. Thank you both for this very informative presentation. I think, I already have some questions which have come in, direct to me, and I have a number of questions myself. I believe there was a lot of meat and detail in the presentation itself, which I think we're going to take you back to Dr. Yusuf. So with that, I would like to officially shift into the second part of this seminar. I think we're 45 minutes down, 45 minutes to go. So this is the perfect kind of flex point where we can shift gears and move into questions and answers. So please, I'll ask our colleagues, technical colleagues, to allow people to perhaps unmute once they have their hands raised and have any questions. I would encourage our esteemed audience to please any thoughts that you have, any interventions, any questions. We would like to have this as an interactive dialogue. We really appreciate your thoughts and questions. Now, with that said, I think I'm going to go to one question which has come in for Hassan. So the question goes as such. You mentioned that the IOM plans to establish a Sharia board to help guide IOM. What are your thoughts on broadening the approach to a UN-wide board that would also encourage sharing experience across UN entities? I think if we could ask you about that, is this a bit ambitious at this point? Is it something you see as realistic? Would it be helpful in your knowledge of the UN agency?
Well, I'm a very positive person. I think it's feasible, and we should definitely try. We're not there yet. I don't want us to be rushing things. We want to do it right. The objective here is not really the funding, but what we can do with the fund that we will collect. And I'm very happy that Dr. Yusuf Dinik said that these funds should be used immediately. And we should establish a private bank account. I mean, there are so many technicalities. We're not there yet. My colleague Carmela Godot and my colleague Gregoire Stein in Geneva, who's in charge of our donor relations, have just reminded me that we have a meeting on the 16th of December. So they'll keep us working until Christmas holidays to exactly discuss those things. So I don't want to tell you anything that we haven't really agreed upon. And bear with me that we have colleagues in the budget department, we have colleagues in different departments. Some of them are even attending with us today. So I'm not going to make any commitment except one. We will do everything possible to ensure that we work in full partnership with other organizations, from the Islamic Development Bank to the ESCWA to other UN agencies that are even more advanced than us. I spoke with my colleague Khalid Khalifa when I saw him in Dubai a few weeks ago, and there is a lot I can learn from him. I learned a lot from the last session we had with UNRWA almost 10 days ago, and so on. So it's work in progress, but I am committed to full partnership with all colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you indeed, Hassan, for that. I think you mentioned to me kind of offline before the meeting that you were looking forward to visit us at the IDB, and I think we would be privileged and honored and look forward to working together on anything possible in that area. A quick follow-up question to you, since we have this on our minds now. Any really, I'd say, challenges that you have met with or foresee, any major challenges in kind of pushing this forward, or is it too early to tell? I can see that you're a very positive person and that you do have some meetings coming up. Would you like to mention to us maybe perhaps the major challenge that a UN agency might face or international organization?
Very good. For me, right, Brother Yusuf?
Actually, this was for Hassan, but I will hear from you, in a bit, Yusuf. Thank you.
Well, maybe Yusuf before me, beauty before age.
I'll allow you to sort that out.
It is.
Well, okay, this is a very interesting question. I honestly don't have an answer, and I think for me the most important challenge will be how successful we will be able to use whatever funds we can get from Zakat or Awqaf or Sadaqah, and how much we will be using, and I hope at equal levels, for both the emergency response, but also for the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals. And both needs are urgent in many countries where we work and cooperate. So that's the most important, for me, that's the most important thing, our engagement for a balanced use of the funds. Again, this has to be done in coordination with a large group of partners, but also ensuring that we're following the Islamic traditions and Islamic rules and regulations. Maybe Dr. Al-Mereki, who's hearing us today, would be kind enough to maybe launch another set of seminars in a year, so we can assess where we are, what has been achieved so far, and we can answer all those questions. I'll note it down, and I promise you, if I'm still around, I will answer you next year. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Hassan. And before I transition to you, Yusuf, again, I think we can hear your same input on this question. But I have a very pressing question which has come in from our audience. They're asking when they can get their hands on this report. I think other people, including myself, actually are involved in similar projects. So, before we go to you for that question, please tell us. And again, maybe this is IOM territory, but tell us.
It is indeed. So we all delivered the all report, and it will be, again, I said, it is a gift from IOM to the community, for any organization, any intergovernmental organization also. So I guess soon after it is an intention. Soon after they decide, I guess they will publish it on or launch it on the website maybe. But for the other question, what I can comment, I want to connect both answers of Ustad Hassan. What was beautiful? So I wanted to keep my presentation brief so we can easily discuss. What is beautiful with IOM, that we all agreed and understood that Islamic social financing is not a competition area, but it is a cooperation, collaboration area. So with this paradigm, we can overcome any challenges, I guess. We have also analyzed the challenges that other institutions are facing. I'm sure the people is excited about the report, but because it will be first time ever. So those details can be seen there, but with this paradigm, with cooperation and collaboration, there is no challenges, obstacles that we cannot overcome. I want to mention this. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Dr. Yusuf. So I think a diplomatic answer in terms of when we will get the report, but I think it's much appreciated really for IOM to be sponsoring such a great knowledge product, because I think I personally have been involved in some projects which really will benefit from this kind of exercise. Now, moving on to another question from the audience, and again, please, to the audience, if you were directing the question to a specific person, please do let me know so I can, direct it correctly. But maybe I think I'm going to put this one to either Professor Bayandir or Dr. Yusuf as you see fit. So it's from Ms. Hala Al-Sharifi. And she's asking, first of all, she's thanking the presenters for the presentations. And she says, based on the presentations, expenses should be as low as possible and not to exceed 12.5%, which is obviously the 1/8. I think this is based on the 8 categories of Zakat recipients. In a previous ISF seminar, and I believe she's referring to UNHCR perhaps, so she says in a previous ISF seminar, one of the agencies was recommended that they get 11% indirect support. This is for funds received from organizations, but from individuals, the agency does not impose any cost. This is according to Islamic Sharia, she says. So why the discrepancy between both? So my understanding would be this is perhaps a pragmatic decision by the agency, but please, I leave it between the two of you again. Dr. Youssef, Professor Sarwat, enlighten us on this.
Of course.
Dr. Yusuf, go on.
Of course. If you go to the practices of other UN agencies, you can find full zero also. What we wanted to do to set the limits by our interviews and analysis. So IOM it is the internal decision, internal strategic decision anymore, but there are some costs, especially the overhead part is like a must in many institutions practices. But if IOM decides something lower than 12.5 or something 0, that will be their strategy. But as what is understood from the Sharia view, Aminin can get a portion of the collected funds. And it shouldn't be exceed 12.5% as recommended by these scholars. We also there is no limit for expenses from Sadaqah. We also mentioned Sadaqah better not to exceed 12.5%. So this will be the first study that these are systematically analyzed and presented to the people. Inshallah, they can read more details there. But this is our main approach. So we wanted to mention the limits of the fatwa.
Excellent. Thank you, Dr. Youssef. Professor Sarwat, anything to add on this point?
No, I think it is okay. It is okay.
Okay, thank you. So let me ask you, Professor Sarwat, another question that we have from Mushfiq Amin is asking or is mentioning that there's an upcoming UN Least Developed Countries Conference in Doha between the 23rd and 27th of January 2022. Would you consider to plan or have a side event dedicated to Islamic social financing initiatives, including perhaps the IOM's Islamic Philanthropy Fund? Perhaps that the IOM specifically would be a question to ask Hassan, and you might know about this already. But to you, Professor Sarwat, is this the kind of event where you might present the more scientific aspects and build some awareness about this activity?
Maybe inshallah. Inshallah.
Yes. So, Hassan, are you aware of this event, and would it be kind of of interest?
I'm not aware. I'm aware now. I hope I get an invitation, and I don't think there is any better place to start talking and sharing our thoughts with other people than this event. So yes, definitely, if you have the opportunity, I think we can come, and maybe our colleagues in Extratwaq would join us. That would be a pleasure and an honor. And I think it will be a consolidated approach by all of us to come together to this event. It will enrich our experience. It will probably enrich the event itself. So definitely I look forward. Can I just go back to the previous question on the percentage? Definitely it will not be 12%. I'm not the one who will decide. Our colleagues in the budget department will take the final decision, and that's their prerogative. But I honestly don't think it will be 12%. Our current overhead is 7%. It differs from one agency to another. If it's left to me, I will say 0%. But again, not for me. Let's try to be neutral, and I think the board that we will establish will help us in moving forward with this. Maybe on some events, some activities, we can only charge 7%, maybe less. We'll see. But again, other colleagues have been doing this, and there is a lot for us in IOM to learn from them. And I'm sure we will come with a collective approach, maybe that could be adopted by all of us. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Mr. Hassan. And I think I have one of my own questions, which I would like to, or it's more of a comment kind of observation. to Mr. Sarwat, Professor Sarwat. I really, one thing that I noted when you gave a background about iqtisad was just the vast kind of array of different nationalities working on this project. You know, I think it's an amazing team, which just shows the international nature of the scientific project itself, you know, let alone the application. Would you give us some idea, was this intentional? Were you picking the best kind of around the world? How did this team come together?
Dr. Yusuf, I think you are better than yes.
A beautiful question. Yani, thanks, Servet Hocam. Yeah, that was an strategy. We wanted to establish a team from different nationalities, from different perspectives, also from different regions of the world, so we could reach the best result with this combination. Also, with the interviews, we distributed the geographies and the Islamic school of thoughts, mazhabs, I mean. So we had huge experience on working with multinational teams. So that was one of the strengths of our study, as I want to mention. Thanks for asking, Brother Yusuf. Thanks, Sir.
But also our team was very strong team. Alhamdulillah, they are also experts their area. Every scholars, they have a so much books, articles about this issue, and they have conducted so many projects about this Islamic finance issues. Alhamdulillah, they are Omar Usali, the head of the IOM, Dr. Hassan is the scholar of the INSAFE, Dr. Adam, Dr. Hassan also, they are scholars on Sabahattin Zaim University, Islamic finance scholars. Rashid also, our brother, is a PhD candidate in Islamic finance. Alhamdulillah, our team is very strong and conducted a very good job, alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. Thank you so much, Professor Sarwat and Dr. Yusuf. You know, I'd like to move to another question from the audience. It's Dr. Muhammad Ayub Mia. And this one I'm going to leave open, so please, whoever of the speakers is interested to take it, please do take it. He's saying that Zakat is a mandatory worship. A lot of Sharia rules and regulations are involved in terms of its distribution and collection. However, IOM is a secular organization managed by non-religious persons necessarily. I mean, I think perhaps people might or might not be religious, but that's not a requirement per se. So he's asking, do you think that only a Sharia board can ensure full compliance of the Islamic charity and requirements of Zakat? Dr. Yusuf, I see you nodding your head. Go ahead.
Yeah, this is the objective of the study. IOM itself first wanted to understand if they can do that. But what we understood from our analysis that collectors' religious status is not an issue. But the recipients' religious status can be. We have, it was a challenge from what we understood from the other agencies that are practicing. But we understand that some recipients never mentioned should be Muslim or not. And one of the recipient category should be non-Muslim also. So the scholars we have interviewed also mentioned that it would be better to distribute the Muslim regions. And IOM is mostly focusing on those regions. Maybe Hassan Bey will mention about the IPF, I mean Islamic Philanthropy Fund. But in some cases, non-Muslims also can benefit from any Zakat fund, what we understood from our analysis.
And also we focused on the standard and procedure. We focused on the banking account from the beginning to the ending of the account. So there are so many strong procedures. If the IOM follow, I think besides on the Sharia board, I think we should what we called we should accept the body can collect and can distribute. So why? Because this is the international organization, not only for non-Muslim organization. UN, you know, so many countries, also Muslim countries and other non-Muslim countries are they consist all of the countries. So as Hassan, as Yusuf, as so many persons we meet in the IOM, they are Muslim and also the non-Muslim. I think we believe this organization, and also we should believe the law. The IOM also should follow the law. If it doesn't follow, maybe 1 or 2 or 3 years later, it can't collect zakat, sadaqah. So it should follow the law.
Yes.
Thank you.
Also, I can add this. Sorry, Ustad Hassan. Also, I can add this. We analyze many institutions, zakat administrating. A few of them has Sharia expertise. So IOM is not against having a Sharia board. It is an advantage for them also. Thanks.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Muhammad Ayub. This is an excellent question. I think it summarized everything that we're trying to achieve. And I follow the replies of the experts, Professor Servet Baindir and Dr. Yousefdin. I would just say on a personal level, I agree IOM is a secular organization managed by non-religious persons. And I'm not an IOM manager, so I'm not considering myself in this category. I personally consider myself religious. I've done the Hajj 3 times, alhamdulillah, and I hope to do it 3 more times before I leave this world. But, you know, my personal belief is that there is no religion in any humanitarian work. We should not base it on religion. Actually, the essence of religion itself is to do humanitarian work and do development work. So if IOM can be used as a tool by this philanthropy fund to achieve those objectives, I don't see any barriers. But anyway, that's why we want to have the Sharia board. Maybe we'll discuss this in the Sharia board. Maybe we'll continue our discussion with our colleagues in Iqtisad Waqf. Maybe we'll have additional ideas. And again, other organizations are already implementing this. And I'm sure we will learn from their experience. So I'll keep it on my agenda and I'll discuss it with other agencies as well. And I hope I can come up with a convincing answer to you at the end of this. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Hassan. I mean, I think you did pinpoint this as being a very deep question, and it gets at the root of this whole debate. You know, because the question is, on the one hand, you know, is it I say the more skeptical colleagues perhaps ask the question, why should I pay my zakat to this UN agency or this UN organization? Is it leveraging me and leveraging zakat to serve an agenda? You know, which is basically it's a noble agenda. You know, it's the agenda to fill the SDGs financing gap, perhaps. You know, and on the other hand, you have the question, as you rightly outlined, that but wait, we have zakat, we have sadaqah, we have a lot of philanthropic potential in the Muslim world. Can we actually use these UN agencies as tools to deliver efficiently? So I think it sounds to me like a positive win-win situation. You know, and I think that's perhaps one of the strongest arguments for this, you know, for this general case, and it's probably the underlying kind of thesis of this entire dialogue, right? So
excuse me, Dr. Yusuf. I see that Dr. Muhammad has shared with us very valid information that the World Zakat Forum has 40 member countries. I promise you, I will contact them and I will see how IOM can engage with them in a very professional way, like UNSCR and UNDP. Thank you very much.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you so much, Dr. Muhammad, for your insight and active participation. It's much appreciated. I did say a very good, so going from we've been talking about the broad level kind of large ideas. Zooming back into a detail perhaps would be interesting at this point. And I see there's a question which I find very interesting, and I've given some thought to this question of percentage, but I don't think I've actually considered this point. The question goes, but this does not only include overhead. So when we're talking about the percentage to be deducted, it also includes transfer costs, staff, staff and office, maybe that could be overhead. So are we saying that, but it's not direct benefit to al-amilun alayha? You assume al-amilun alayha is a salary to the, so is there a distinction, or are we saying 12.5% cap for everything? Maybe, it's up to you, Dr. Yusuf.
Yeah, it is, I guess it is from Brother Fuad. Thanks. So what we understood, we found out that IOM is not focusing on enhancing its fund sources. IOM is focusing on solving the problems of those vulnerable communities. That may bring some cost to them. And IOM doesn't have any UN sources itself. It only raises funds from the donors. So that 12.5 includes everything, every expenses. We understand that it cannot exceed that much. So also for the previous question, one of our important findings from scholar interviews, that which is most transparent, which is most accountable, is the most Islamic. What we understood from the perspective.
Thank you so much for that insight, Dr. Yusuf, and it's aligned perfectly with what Hassan was mentioning. I think at the end of the day, the most Islamic perhaps, and the one that serves the mandate, is the one that is able to deliver efficiently and transparently. And I think today the UN agencies are well placed to do so with the right kind of parameters. A question which I had personally, my area of professional activity is in the area of awqaf, and I saw a number related to awqaf in the presentation. There's a big distinction though between awqaf and zakat. In zakat, we're talking about funds which are directly utilizable. In fact, they should, as was mentioned, should be utilized within the year. When this number which you mentioned for awqaf, is this returns? So is this income from awqaf? So again, things that could potentially be spent? I would assume so, but I wanted a confirmation on this, please.
Yes, correct, brother. It is, we try to focus all types of Muslim alms. Also, Eid al-Ahda, it is not in the context of the study, but it can be, why not, yani? So those paradigm, as I mentioned before, it is a cooperation area. So Waqf is a part of it, of course. That's why we had to focus on that. So I guess, as you mentioned, Brother Yusuf, I have attended all the serial. But this is the first time we are discussing a systematical analysis instead of personal opinions. So those should be most comprehensive for a Muslim alms and administrating perspective. So of course, Waqf is there for cooperation, collaboration issues.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Dr. Yusuf. Going back to Brother Hassan, my thinking is, what inspired you kind of to kickstart this whole project? I think we're all aware of the excellent experience of UNHCR, and we've had a good session with them as well. I'm really happy to see that there are ripples kind of throughout the UN agencies and various bodies. Was it this? Was it some realization that there was a need to supplement resources? You're obviously the envoy to the Gulf area. Did you think that there was untapped potential there? Again, it's kind of a broad question, but I'd like your kind insights in that area.
Well, actually, the idea started long before we even decide to have a special envoy to the Gulf countries. It's actually, I'm not the right person, actually. My colleague Gregoire Wittstein, who's the head of DRD, Donor Relations Department, is better placed than me to answer this. But since I have the floor, it's part of what a department under Gregoire is working on, which is engaging with the private sector. It's IOM realization, I think must have been at least 10 years ago, that we need to engage more with the private sector. And as we moved forward, we started looking at what are other potential partners. And the figure that Dr. Youssef mentioned about almost $1 trillion, and only 10% is used. I mean, there is a huge gap of the needs. We all face different challenges, huge challenges. So many problems, unfortunately, lost now for years and years. The Syrian problem, for instance, is 2011 and so on. I'm not going to give you a long list of humanitarian interventions where IOM is so much engaged, but they don't end, and the needs are huge. And there is a donor's fatigue. I mean, people are still in Bangladesh suffering, in Burma, in so many places, and then natural disasters. And then add to that the Sustainable Development Goals. The needs are huge. There is room for everyone. And I think other agencies gave us a good lead and a good example, and they have been very successful in their work in this regard. So we hope to follow, and maybe one day we have a collective approach. And I remember we have been very successful, IOM and UNHCR, in responding to the Libya crisis, for instance, in 2011, together, joint efforts. And I think we can always do the same. We can, hopefully, with the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, we had good cooperation in Bangui, in République Centrafricaine. There is a lot we can do, and I think this is a good start, and I'm grateful for the dialogue that we have today, because it's really putting all of us not only on the right track, but on the same page. We talk to each other, we understand each other, we are committed to work together. And I hope that as we move forward, the best approach will be followed by everybody. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Brother Hassan. There's a question that came in from Mushbaq Amin, and I think you partially answered this question, but it's related to something that I've had in mind as well. So he's asking, would it be better to have one joint UN Zakat fund instead of different funds under different agencies? So this question of global versus segregated, as per the mandate of the organization. The question that I had in mind, and this is one that has been raised to me before when discussing UN agencies and Zakat, is a question of, even further down the scale. So the question here is about global, but moving further down, what about the local? So the question is localization. There's some opinion, and this I think is to our Sharia colleagues more, there's some opinion that Zakat should actually be distributed as much as possible in the same locality as it's collected. So how do we deal with this in the framework of the UN agencies? And how does this tie into the idea of more global funds? And then what do you think of the idea of having one big fund for the entire UN system? It's a broad question, I know. I see both Professor Sarwat and Dr. Youssef and now Hassan. So please, feel free to answer it all three.
Okay, I'll start.
Okay, Hassan,
to encourage them to reply.
Thank you.
Listen, we are at the era of one UN. So the idea of having one fund, UN fund, that is a great one. and I hope we all agree. I'm sure that we will all agree. It will take some time, probably. Probably I will retire before that happens, but I will definitely vote for that. And IOM has no problem. On the contrary, IOM would greatly work with all other partners, and I hope that we have this common vision as UN to have one fund. That will be really a great idea. I don't see any problem actually in achieving. It will take some time. We have different processes. As we move forward, becoming more a one UN, I think we would achieve that. So maybe in a few years, this should be really on the agenda. But this is how great ideas actually start. It's a thought, a vision, a comment that develops over the years and become a reality. Now, it's really globally, the world is changing, and the UN is changing as well. So I hope that this can happen. On the other points, I think our professor and doctor are better placed to answer. Thank you.
Actually, we discussed this issue very deeply when we are studying our project. I think Yusuf had more.
Thank you. Thank you. When this research initiative call came to us, we found our dream. What I'm mentioning, if you go to literature, you will find that a global Zakat fund idea is within many researchers. So that was an opportunity for us to realize that dream. I can say this, but those UN agencies have different target groups, have different responsibilities. So I'm not sure if it is possible. I cannot say anything on that, but I can say this. Muslim is the responsible one. And when we analyzed other Muslim charities, Zakat or Sadaqah administration institutions, they are responsible and they have global vision, almost all of them. Almost all of them. They are not silent for any part of the world, for any problem of the needy. So that is beautiful. That is something visionary. I hope we can have a global Zakat fund, either UN or something else. Yani. But it can help a lot to the whole human and the other species also. That's what I can say.
Thank you so much, all.
Yusuf, when there is a will, there is a way. So I assure you, it will happen.
Inshallah.
Excellent to hear. And Hassan, on that point, I've received a question about the amount of time that this plan has been in the making. You know, you mentioned that it's really been something which has been in process for a long time. The question is, and I think right now you've already done a huge contribution to the UN system, international agencies, and humanity by commissioning this kind of study and getting into this kind of nitty-gritty details. But the question is really asking, what else can we do? How can we avoid this kind of initiative taking such a long time in the process? Any thoughts?
Well, when I mentioned long time, I was referring to our engagement with the private sector. As for the Islamic Alms, it started a year ago. And I think it took us a year because we wanted to really have a solid foundation of the next step. And this could have not happened without the real support of our colleagues in Iqtisad Waqf. Now, I think we're almost ready. Some administrative points, and I mentioned we have a conference call with our colleagues in the region and in Geneva on the 16th of December. So I hope after that we can finalize a memo for our Director General and move forward. I honestly don't see any need for us to delay our first step. And then, as I said again, it's work in progress. We will learn from moving on and getting the first Zakat funds and implementing them and so on. And then also with engaging with with other colleagues, and I repeated I learned a lot from the UNRWA session. I learned a lot from Khalid Khalifa with UNHCR, and now the great idea of also getting in touch with WZF. So this is how we will enrich the debate and our response. So yeah, it will take some time, but it will happen.
Thank you so much, Brother Hassan. And I think, you know, it makes perfect sense for it to take a year at least to sort this kind of issue out. I think there was, you know, perhaps an understanding that it had taken longer, but, you know, I think that makes perfect sense. I think, as you rightly highlighted, we've had some excellent interaction from, you know, the participants today. I think they've added to us. I personally have learned from all three of you and from the participants. I'm sad to say that I think we're going to need to, well, I'm happy to introduce Dr. Al-Maraighi for closing. I'm sad to be closing. But I think with your permission, the three of you, with the permission of the participants, I would like to invite Dr. Ahmed Al-Maraighi. I don't really have much to say about Dr. Al-Maraighi. I think many people who have been attending these seminars, you know Dr. Al-Maraighi quite well. So I will not dwell too much. All I can say is that, you know, or suffice to say that he is the special advisor to the UN Secretary General, and really a key person, if not the key person behind this entire movement from day one. So Dr. Al-Maraighi, thank you for being with us, and over to you as usual for your kind closing remarks.
Thank you very much. I don't know. I just lost the connection, and I tried. I don't know if you hear me now or not.
We can hear you loud and clear.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for your introduction. I'm sure, and I'm so happy that to see his ambassador Hassan, and a long time I haven't seen him. And I'm sorry. I will switch to Arabic because I prefer to speak in Arabic. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. طبعا حقيقة استمتعت كثير في هذا يعني في اليوم وفي هذه الجلسة المهمة لاستعراض كذلك النشاطات IOM وما تقوم به. وحقيقة يعني اليوم كذلك تثبت أكثر عندنا أهمية هذا المشروع. وأنا أتفق مع سعادة السفير حسن في أن احنا لابد أن تكون هناك مواصلة حتى بعد ما يتم وجود هذه الآلية. لابد أن تكون كذلك هناك سيمينار متواصل، وإن شاء الله تعالى أأمل أن يكون كذلك. وأنا حقيقة متفائل كثير في إيجاد هذه الآلية وفق نظام الأمم المتحدة ومنظومة الأمم المتحدة، لأنها راح تساعد كثير من الناس، وخاصة أن يعني أكثر من 65% من الكرايسيس أو من الكوارث التي قاعدة تحدث في يعني دول إسلامية. فالزكاة وخاصة الزكاة مسألة حساسة عند المسلمين. وطبعا نشكر حقيقة الأسكوا وكذلك بنك التنمية الإسلامي على ما يقومون به، وهذه الشراكة ما بين الأمم المتحدة وبنك التنمية الإسلامي راح يحقق ما احنا نطمح له. وكما ذكر كذلك يعني اخوي السفير سعد السفير حسن بان الامر يحتاج وقت، واحنا حقيقه حتى منذ البدايه احنا لا نتطلع ان تكون هذه الآلية في القريب العاجل، ولو ان احنا نتمنى ان تكون طبعا في القريب العاجل، لكن بسبب ما تحتاج حقيقه ان تاخذ وقتها، وأن كذلك يعني يتم تغطية كافة الجوانب الفنية، الجوانب الشرعية، الجوانب العملية وما إلى ذلك. لذلك حتى رأينا أن احنا أخذنا في الحوار الآن منذ شهر 6 إلى اليوم، يعني وإحنا مستمرين في هذا الحوار حتى يتم يعني هضم فكرة التمويل الإسلامي وأهميته بطريقة ليس بطريقة انفرادية، لأن الآن IOM قاعدين يستخدمون الزكاة وكذلك الصدقات وما إلى ذلك، وكذلك UNHCR مثل ما شاهدنا أو استمعنا إلى الجلسات السابقة. ولكن كيف ممكن أن يكون عندنا جهد يعني شامل يشمل كافة الجهات بحيث نستفيد فعلا استفادة كلية من بشكل كلي مع جميع المنظمات. يكون عندنا هناك آلية واضحة أممية يستطيع أن المسلم في أي أرجاء هذه المعمورة أن يدفع زكاته أو أن يدفع صدقاته أو أن يستخدم هذا بآلية آمنة وثابتة، وكذلك تكون عبر الأمم المتحدة. فحقيقة أشكركم يعني جزيل الشكر على ما قدمتوه صراحة، يعني سعادة السفير حسن وكذلك الأخوان المقدمين الآخرين، وكذلك لك الشكر موصول دكتور يوسف على هذه الإدارة المميزة، والشكر كذلك لإخواننا صراحة في الترجمة الذين يعني دائما وأبدا يعني حاضرين ومغطين كافة ويجتهدون في أنهم يوصلون لنا المعلومة. وطبعا نذكركم كذلك بالجلسة القادمة والسيشن القادم الذي سوف يكون في 15 ديسمبر. فيما يتعلق بإيجاد السيشن داخل LCD كونفرنس، الإشكالية طبعا الوقت ضيق، فلا يسعنا أن احنا نلحق، ولو أنها هي فكرة حقيقة جدا جميلة. لكن الآن أنا قاعد أشتغل مع دوحة فورم بحيث أنه يخصصوا لنا سيشن في دوحة فورم، وراح يكون يعني منتدى الدوحة طبعا كذلك يعتبر من المنتديات الكبيرة التي يكون فيها كثير من المشاركين. فنأمل أن ممكن تكون إما مناقشة، لعل الفكرة عندي حقيقة أن يكون هناك مناقشة للرود ماب اللي احنا بنطلع فيه من خلال هذه السيمينارز، وفي نفس الوقت كذلك يكون نقاش ما بين المختصين لإيجاد الآلية والموافقة عليه. وشكرا.
شكرا لك دكتور، حفظكم الله.
وإياك إن شاء الله.
Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, this brings us sadly to the end of this seminar. I would like to thank everyone who has worked to arrange it, including our colleagues at UN ESCWA for making and handling the logistics. I would also like to thank our esteemed speakers who have given us much food for thought. And I would like to thank all seminar participants who have really engaged actively in this session. Until we meet in the final seminar in mid-December, inshallah, stay safe, stay healthy. وفي أمان الله. السلام عليكم.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله. في أمان الله. نراكم عن قريب.
Aleyküm.
سلام.
السلامة.